Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode in season 8 for Experience University. I have another incredible guest today, and I am so excited for this conversation. Erika and I go way back to December, maybe. so not super long, but instant friends, instant text buddies. It's all great. And today we are going to talk about LARPing. But before we get into that, Erika Shaefer. Erika, tell us a little bit, just tell us like how long you've been in events and how long you've been LARPing, just to kind of set the scene. And then I'll dive into the questions.
Excellent. Yeah, hi. I have been doing events in one form or another for about 15 years now, and I've been doing LARPing for the past almost decade now.
So for everyone who's listening on the podcast, so Erica's going to talk all about LARPing, but LARPing is global. And I actually have a lot of friends that LARP. And originally I was going to have someone from Europe to come on the podcast to talk about LARPing. But what I realized very quickly, I was at an event that was in Europe, and LARPing was a big part of that. It wasn't a LARPing event, but LARPing was a part of this event. And they even had like sessions and breakouts on LARPing. And what I realized was that LARPing there is very different than LARPing in the United States. And so I specifically chose someone, Erika, who's on the podcast today, because she can speak to both types of LARPing and how they're different and how maybe our preconceived notions about LARPing in the United States are just not what we see in other parts of the world. So some of my podcast guests are like, what is LARPing? What does that even mean? So Erika, tell us how you define and describe what LARPing is.
Gladly. So LARPing we can kind of think of as, well, it stands for live action role play. What this means is that you basically have two kind of subsections of it where there's boffer LARP, which is often what you'll kind of classically think of. So someone with foam swords hitting each other. But what I lean into and have done for the past 9, 10 years is much more the Nordic style, which is really focused on role playing specifically and storytelling. Uh, Love it. Absolutely love it.
And that's, I think, growing up. I mean, my former partner had been so big into Dungeons and Dragons. My current partner is super big into, I don't know, I collect Dungeons and Dragons people. I have a type, I suppose. But I've been around Dungeons and Dragons for over 2 decades. And I have had friends that would do the dressing up and they'd be hitting each other with the sticks and the foam swords and all of this stuff out in the fields. And I'm like, y'all are crazy. That's just like not a thing. So when I went to Europe, I was super surprised. I was like, wow, there's a thing out here and it's really cool. And I can totally see the potential for events. And that was several years ago, I don't know, 6 years ago. And now I know in the US and in other places of the world, we talk a lot about improv. And improv started, in theater, and now it's making its way in the business world, and everybody wants to improv, and sales and finance and accountants, everyone's improving. And so LARPing is something that I think is integral for events at a variety of points, because we have the attendees, we have the staff, and we have the designers, the planners. And so unlike incorporating improv, LARP is its own event. So Erika, can you maybe talk us through like one or two examples of like what a LARP in this Nordic style would be, and like really set the scene and get us in there?
Sure. So one of my favorite LARPs that I have participated in within the past decade has been Lies and Liabilities, which is a Regency era, think Bridgerton, think Pride and Prejudice kind of story. With that, it is set in this old church, and it's where like people who were clergymen or priests would go and like do schooling there. They would live at this place. So it looks almost like a castle, and it's gorgeous in the middle of where was this? In Wisconsin, I believe, just outside of Chicago, like an hour or two. So you get to stay there. And then there's different little parlor areas. There's a different little fencing area so that you get to really feel immersed and like you are truly in this setting. There's a gardens that you can stroll through. Loved it. What makes the experience so good though is everything from your character sheet that you receive months in advance of the event so that you can really dive in and think about who your character is, uh, how you want to play this character, from everything from costuming to mannerisms. So if you are a planner like me, you kind of get that experience and that comfort of knowing that you can plan it out a little bit ahead of time. But also you get the experience of just connecting with people on the site, uh, improving essentially, and having these really beautiful moments of storytelling and authentic connection with other players that you could not have seen coming.
I love that so much. One of the questions that I love to ask guests, and I'm asking you, but I'm asking out of order. One of the questions that I love to ask is, what do you think that current event and experience design professionals are getting wrong? And oh, you and I met at IAEE's Expo. I was speaking, and then we connected, and then we went out, and we had so much fun, and we just stayed connected after that. And I know we had some of that discussion there, but then also, obviously, in preparation for this podcast, what do you believe is something that event professionals, experienced professionals are kind of like getting wrong? There is no wrong, there's no right or wrong. Everything's a scale, it's not dichotomous, there's no X on the checkbox, right? But like, what do you think is something that we're not doing as well as we should be?
Easy. I think we fall into the trap of really wanting to do the absolute best event that we can. And obviously, we want that. But I think a lot of times we can overpromise things and then underdeliver them. And to me, that always feels like the worst case scenario. If we know that we are going to not be able to deliver this grand vision, how can we tweak the vision to be more realistic with the resources, the time we have, the people for labor that we have to make this vision come true? And how can we communicate that to the audience and participants so that they are along for the journey of, this is what we are really excited to show you and have you be a part of, versus here's some wild dreams that actually we can't follow through on. That just seems devastating to me. I hate it.
That like instantly brings to mind like the fire festival, and then that that crazy one recently that was like in, was it in London with the, was it Willy Wonka? I don't remember, where it was like,
Oh.
it was all AI generated of what these beautiful scenes you were going to walk into, and then when you walked in it was like an empty warehouse with like a tarp on the
Hmm.
wall. And I'm sure there's so many lawsuits coming for that one, but yeah. So, to our listeners at home, this might seem ADHD, and you're like, wow, that was a big jump. You're talking about LARP, and then you went to expectations. But to me, it's completely related, because if we're talking about one of the things that we're getting wrong is maybe setting expectations or over promising, under delivering, or saying it's going to be a life transformational experience and then it's not, right? So LARPing is all about, it's like that actual experience. It's like improv on a greater scale, but it is its own event. So Erika, kind of talk about how your LARPing skills have helped to overcome some of those setting expectations.
Sure. Um, I think being able to learn, especially on the staffing side, uh, learning how to be adaptable in different situations has definitely helped me in my events career and honestly just as a person as a whole to be more resourceful and better at just adapting to life. Basically, what that has looked like is in LARP, a lot of times characters can come to operations, ops, and ask for a scene request. They want an NPC to show up as their parents and berate them so that they can have this big dramatic scene, or their ex-lover has come to try to win them back. So they'll make these kind of scene requests to ops. And then it's ops' job to either make that happen or give them an alteration. Say, we can't have your ex-lover come in just because we don't have someone that you're describing. You want a man. We don't have a man on staff available at this time to do that. So could we have someone else come and dress up for you? Could we have someone do this on a different day of the LARP? Can we have your ex-lover's wife show up instead and have that be the solution? So it's a lot of working together and negotiating what possibilities there are.
I love that. It brought me back to That's how I've taken improv for a while. Everyone who's listening or has listened for a few seasons, they know that. And after I had taken like improv one, there's like 3 levels of improv. After I had taken improv one, I mean, I guess I did a decent job, but so someone, someone from like a theater, murder mystery type of company had reached out to the improv teacher that I had studied under and was asking very specifically for someone of like, you know, kind of short and a girl and white and blah 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 blah. And I met the scene, but nobody in the current like improv troupe met that scene. And so I was invited to participate, and I was like so nervous because it was my very first thing, and I got paid well. And it turned out it was for the head football coach at Nebraska, and the reason why they hired like this out of state company was so that way it would be nobody local. And I was the only local person because they needed to fill the spot. And I was like, oh, you don't even know. That's like Scott Frost over there and like all his friends, right? Now Scott Frost isn't here. So it's no longer a cool story, but it was really funny. So so when this, I digress, I've had coffee today. All right, so when I'm thinking LARP, I'm thinking like, well, that's cool, this is a cool concept, but that's a totally separate event, right? Like you dress up and you do the thing, and that's separate. But incorporating LARP or LARP styles into our events, whether we think of that as like a theater or a play, but I think of it as like an activation or engagement or things like that. Have you had any experience with that or seen anything like that? Or how do you think it can be incorporated?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in corporate events, you can take elements of LARP. In terms of LARP truly just boils down to storytelling and connecting authentically with people. And I think that's kind of what the point of most events are, an opportunity for people to authentically connect with each other so that they can continue to do business with each other or showcase their own business and skills and talents and people. So really, I think what we can take from that is creating an experience that gives people opportunities and hooks, easy moments for them to connect because they have similar interests or because they are there for a similar goal, and really highlighting that in a way that makes it fun and interesting versus just, oh, it's another business event.
Mhm.
You know, make it something more intriguing and, as you said, activating.
Yeah. I feel like we could talk forever, and I'm amazed at how long we've already been talking. One of the things, my last like real question, I suppose, before we go to the one tip, one of the things that I think we do really bad in events in general, like this would be my answer to that question of the thing like we're getting wrong, would be like onboarding new people or getting new people involved. Like we are hearing that all the time now when people are going for networking or like the first time attendee experience, how bad it is. You put a smaller group in a room together with an open bar. Like, where's the intention? How are you setting that? And then when you said getting it wrong was like setting expectations. And so tell us what LARPs do, because LARPs are separate events. Like what, as a first time attendee, I don't know if you can remember a decade or so ago, if you're a first time LARP attendee, like how does the LARP community like welcome its newbies, or like what other resources did you have?
Sure. So the very first LARP that I went to was one that was called New World Magiscola. It was basically like a wizard college LARP. And what was really helpful for me, because I was super scared going to it, super excited, but also very intimidated because there's people who have done LARPing for decades, come prepared with immaculate costumes and characters and props that they have spent months on, which can be very intimidating to a newbie. So what I did was jumped onto the Facebook group, introduced myself, said, "Hi, I am new here. I've never LARPed before. I'm really excited, but also I am nervous. Does anyone have tips for me? Does anyone have cool things that I could do to like incorporate into my character or into my game? Does anyone want to be my friend? Does anyone want to set up a connection that we have in game?" So kind of pre-planning it. So I think being a little bit vulnerable helps. You know, everyone's usually very helpful and ready to jump in and welcome you. They just need the opportunity to know that you need welcoming. So make yourself vulnerable in that way. And then if you are a planner, which I assume your audience is probably a planner, then go ahead and take advantage of that. Go ahead and make the first step, make that connection with someone and say, hey, do you want to be my friend in this game? Do you want to be my long lost, cousin or someone that we can have a dramatic scene over?
Mhm.
Give yourself some opportunities there and create those little moments of fun with other people, and leave some room also for just some improv and some magic that you can't really uh, see coming. That's what I love about LARP, is that no matter how much planning you do, there's going to be these little moments of connection with other people that you just could not have planned, and they are just the best moments.
That's, I mean, truly, that's what I love so much is that LARPing is like it sets a structure and gives you guidelines, but then it's really co-created. And that's what our events should be. And I feel like as event and experience professionals, we tend to micromanage and try to plan out every single detail. And that doesn't leave room for the co-creation there. So I
Absolutely.
love that. And it also makes me think of in our, like, we have a meeting planner group, whether or not you're part of it, on Facebook, like the National Meeting Planner Group, that's just for planners. And people post in there all the time, hey, I'm a first time attendee to this event. What should I know? Anyone want to meet up? Whatever, whatever. But do independent events have that community? And that leads to a previous podcast episode that we had with Chris Catania about community and building community and the
Hmm.
importance of that. So that way, they're continuing these relationships outside. Okay, oh my gosh, we've already been talking for so long. We could talk so long. Okay, what's one tip? Everyone who's listening to this podcast, event, experience, professional, students, all of the people, what's your one tip, that your one practical takeaway that you're like, this is something that you should
Mm, do LARP.
do?
Honestly, it's one of those things where, like, if you are even slightly interested in it,
Mhm.
I think don't let yourself be too scared by it, and go ahead and just give it a try. Go ahead and don't get perfection in the way of you trying something new. It's okay to be a little brave and it's okay to be a little scared, but like it's definitely worth it to see the community that you have. And honestly, the community is probably my favorite part about LARPing.
Mhm.
I've made so many friends from it. I have 300 plus people around the world that I can stay at their place instantly because I made friends with them through LARP. And that kind of connection is just, oh, love it.
I love that. And if you're watching the video, we had Chef's Kiss there, which was absolutely wonderful. And I can already see all the barriers people are putting up in their minds. Well, yeah, try something new. You don't have my boss. My boss isn't going to let me try something new. It just, do what you can to build in something new, and something small that would get you. All those small bricks, they add up and then they make a whole new wall or a barrier or a staircase or whatever you want it to be. Erika, thank you so much. This is so much fun. I know we're going to stay on and we're going to chit chat. We're going to like hang out and do all the things, but thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being a podcast guest, and for
Thank you so
everyone.
much for having me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And you're going to have to come on in the future too, for sure. Um,
Absolutely.
for everyone who's listening or watching online, thank you so much. Next up, next week, we have all things psychology with one of I'm going to say, the world's best meeting psychologists ever. And you definitely want to stay tuned for that one, in addition to all the great content for the rest of season 8. Awesome. Well, thank you all so
Woo.
much for taking the time to make the time, and I will talk with you soon.